How did you come up with the idea to go so far away from home?
Yeah, so it's it's kind of a long story, but I'll condense it as much as I can. So I graduated high school a year early. I graduated my junior year, so just like 2 weeks after I turned 17. So I was 16 my entire last year of high school. And yeah, and my aunt, I have an aunt who has some money. She's like the only person in my family with money. And so she wanted to get me something special because I achieved something before everybody else. And so she got me a trip to Hawaii to go see one of my friends who's Hawaiian that ended up moving back home the year before. And it would be my first time on a plane and my first time out of the West Coast. At that point, I had only been to Washington and Oregon and California. So, and I did it alone. I graduated in June. I flew 2 weeks later to Hawaii by myself, and I stayed with my friend for 2 weeks. And while I was in Hawaii, I actually met a guy from here, from Uruguay. He was on a 3-day layover in Hawaii before going to Japan with his family, and we kept talking. And he ended up coming to visit me in December of that year and we started going out that year. And then I came to Uruguay for the first time later that year. And so that's my first time in Uruguay was because of him.
You had a strong motivation all of a sudden to go there.
Exactly. I feel like that's how a lot of international travel and language learning happens for love.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no stronger motivator than that. And
Of
I guess
course, yeah.
I mean, maybe this is not accurate, but it feels like if you haven't been on an international trip, Uruguay is also kind of a random place to go. Like if you didn't have a connection to it.
It was so random and it was my first time out of the US ever. And when I would tell people I was going there, they had no idea where it was. Like my family had never even heard of it before. And
Right.
because I was so young that year, I hadn't even turned 18. I came to Uruguay for the first time when I was 17 still. It's
Wow.
crazy my family allowed me to do that, but yeah, I flew here by myself and it was a 23-hour journey.
Whoa, because Uruguay is like way at the southern point of South America, right?
Yeah,
At the
it's the
bottom.
second most southern capital city in the world.
Wow. So like, I mean, how did your family react to that? Were they like shocked that you were gonna go on that trip?
Yeah, I think if they hadn't have met him before, they would not have been supportive, but because I was already in college and I was working and living on my own pretty much, they trusted me to make my own decisions, but it's pretty crazy. Now thinking back on it so many years later, it sounds crazy, but yeah, my family had no idea. They'd never heard of Uruguay. They had no idea where it was. And of course, being from the US, and I'm sure you can relate being from Canada, we hear a lot about Latin America and South America specifically about how dangerous it is. When I told my grandparents I was coming here, they told me that I was going to be kidnapped, that I was going to
Right.
stand out because of the way that I looked, and that I wouldn't be able to communicate with anyone. And so I had a lot of these like preconceived notions about how it was going to be before I got here. And you've seen some of my videos, so you've probably seen, but when I got here, it kind of like blew my mind a little bit because it was so different to how I thought it would be, and so different to how Latin America is oftentimes um, shown in movies and TV in the US anyway.
I mean, that's what keeps people from going to other countries as well, right?
Of
It's really
course,
easy
yeah.
to kind of live in a bubble, especially in North America, I feel like. You can just kind of live in a little bubble and be afraid to go outside of it, right? Why would I go anywhere else if it's going to be more dangerous than where I live? Is kind of the preconceived notions that we have, right?
Of course,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, it makes sense that people would think that, especially if they're people that haven't left the US. Yeah, but that's a crazy trip to go on. And I feel like that's a great way to start kind of an adventurous lifestyle. You jump right into the deep end. When you were in it, did it feel like you were doing something crazy, or were you like, oh, this totally makes sense because like this guy that I know is over there, and like we're going out now, so it totally makes sense we'd be in the same country, or
Yeah, so I mean, thinking back on it, like I was had the most confidence in the world. Like I wasn't even phased by it. I bought that ticket. I got on the first flight, second one, third one, and like it never seemed crazy in my head, even though realistically I was like the only person I knew that would leave the US. The majority of the people I grew up around had never left, besides maybe a resort in Mexico.
And I think it's kind of like it's it seems crazy, but then in my own mind, it also makes total sense that if you're from an environment that's like a little bit smaller, maybe the less international experiences, it makes sense that you'd want to kind of like branch out and see something else as well. I kind of have a theory that it goes one of two ways. Either you get really comfortable in that environment and you never get a passport, or you're like, no, 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 I need to experience something different. And then you just kind of like jump, straight into it. I had kind of a similar experience in high school. Like I also graduated when I was 17 because I was born in December. And so when I graduated, I was like, oh, I want to go on an international trip. And I had Australia in mind, which is like, it's not really the deep end for an English speaker, like it's still in the Commonwealth with Canada and there's no
But
language
it's very
barrier.
far though, so we have that in common. It's very far.
Very, yeah, really far flight. Yeah, completely different hemisphere. And so I did that and I had to wait until I turned 18 to be able to get the visa because I was doing a working holiday visa.
Oh, wow.
And I was in the same kind of boat where no one in my life would do that. Like none of my friends, like I didn't necessarily want to travel by myself, but I didn't know anyone that would go with me. And so I just went on my own and I really thought that I knew more than I did. Like I got to Australia, I didn't know what a hostel was. I was there for 6 months on my own and I learned what a hostel was when I got there. And so I'm surprised I didn't like die, honestly. But sometimes you need that kind of blind confidence to push you through the things, right? Otherwise,
I
you
think
wouldn't
that's
do
really
it.
what it is. Yeah, just blind confidence at a young age. And then you grow up and you realize I can't do this.
Yeah, sure. You kind of trick yourself into thinking that it's easier than it is, I guess. Because traveling is hard, right? There's lots of challenges. Was it hard for you when you got to Uruguay? Was there some culture shock there?
So the first time I came here, I was only for about 3 weeks, and I had been hearing so much about it, obviously, from him, and he was telling me like, be prepared. This is the third world. It won't be like what you're used to. And in my head, I was like, no, it'll be fine. And I got here, and surprisingly, because I had such like negative connotations in my head when I got here, it was like mind blowing. Like everything was just so nice to me because like imagine me, I'm from this small town in Oregon. I had never really been anywhere and I come here and it's like a city of over a million people, like 1.5 million. There's like beautiful 100-year-old, 200-year-old buildings. Like I'd never seen a building that old before in my whole life. So when I got here, I saw everything with like a rose colored glasses, of course. But when I came here to live for the first time, that was when I experienced most of those culture shocks, where I was here for like a month and I ran out of like the hot sauce that I brought. I brought like a bottle of sriracha and I ran out of it and I tried to find it and I couldn't find it anywhere. Like I looked for like a week. I found it at one store and it was something crazy like $16. And I was like, oh, wow. So I had like a bunch of culture shocks where I like couldn't get the food that I wanted and I couldn't do a lot of the things that I was like comfortable with. But yeah, of course, those experiences really helped me grow a lot because I realized I didn't need all of the things that I thought that I needed to live a good life. And I didn't need like those foods. It really just opened me up in a way that nothing else really had at that point. And at that point, when I came to live here, I think I was 19, and I thought that I was like cultured and I thought I was like well educated. But after being here for a long time, it really like opened me up in a way that I didn't realize I needed to be opened up, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
totally, yeah. Yeah, you don't see the culture that you live in, right? You don't see the culture that you're from until you step outside of it. And I think it's totally normal to like want to cling to things that you're familiar with when you're in a different environment. Like the hot sauce, like the food,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
cultural norms, whatever it might be. Because it's like a vulnerable thing to be in a different country where everyone is doing things differently than you're used to, right?